let's cut to the chase here. This series has a lot of problems, and it's not for not following the original. Some choices here looked promising. A shorter version could cut the slowest parts and the crowd of plastic knights. Besides, an update possibly stopped perpetuating some antiquated ideas. No, the problem is that they adapted the same way Dick did the original. Yeah, Knights of the Zodiac actually did make it to Anglo-Saxon America, but they wanted to pretend it was for kids. We still get a lot of that, but at least in Brazil, we didn't have people redrawing and re-editing the whole cartoon for fear of someone noticing anime comes from Japan. I've given a few examples of why they saw and rejected Knights over there, and for good reason. All of the blood is green or purple. Shina and Marine have an echo when they speak.
This isn't your fight, Marine. Just walk away.
The cloth belongs to Seiya.
And whoever decided these things must hear a lot of echo when they finally have an idea. Hyoga is a surfer cliché and becomes Seiya's best friend for some reason.
Hey everybody!
The big threat to Shiryu after losing is not having powers anymore, which come from the tattoo.
Shiryu will recover, but he may no longer be dragon.
And in the first episode, besides Seiya being practically declared the next Gold Knight of Sagittarius in the first 4 minutes, he never says Pegasus Meteor Punch. It's no wonder people who are above the age of 5 rejected this. I just wonder why Netflix hasn't. And I won't pretend my nostalgia isn't a part of the question, or that the Netflix version is as bad as the one from the land of the beer mugs of foamy water, where Neptune and Uranus were cousins, Lee was a main character, and the Saiyans invaded on a Sunday.
I can see their parachutes! They're okay.
But much like the floating wine glasses don't make any sense, and that was supposed to be a more realistic movie, where servants are blamed for not teaching Richie Rich to be a better person, someone is worrying about people who can split the sky having to carry big boxes on their backs, but made putting on cosmos-sensitive mystic armor worse than centurions. Okay. The biggest problems of the Netflix show didn't start here, so it wouldn't be fair to suggest it's only their problem. For instance, I haven't seen everything related to the franchise, but there was always more than one interpretation of the Zodiac's influence in the characters' lives. The most common and best working for them is that people can have a destiny, something they can't avoid happening, but they can face it, no matter how hard it may be. In the original series, this is rarely not the idea. How this influence will take place depends on the person themselves and the situation they're in, and there's even a subtext that those who say they're incapable of fighting against the difficulties become villains. This is a franchise full of episodes that say you are destined to lose to one of the knights, and they challenge destiny and win over the gods of chaos, war, sea, underworld, two sun gods, and Lucy when done taking the ball away from the Charlie Browns of hell to open a piano bar.
Charlie Brown!
But I'd be lying if I said they were the first to say destiny was more literal. In the attempt to broaden the story of the knights, Saint Seiya Omega brought some ideas that were innovative or even curious, but they clearly didn't understand well what they were handling. Oh, Benito, I didn't see the series, but it couldn't have been so bad. They introduce an element system. Knights da porra do Zodiac with an elemental system. And it wasn't even taken seriously. It was something that showed up for a bit and was completely ignored after the first arc. Oh, and guess what else they introduced? Portability. In their case, thanks to the cloths having been transformed by the same comet that made Cosmos have elements and alignment. At least makes more sense for them to be metals than stones, right? Too bad the one who invented that was the CGI movie, but I don't didn't want to be unfair. They at least didn't want to pretend the armor was associated to gears. I can't say that connecting super powerful knights to soldiers is a good idea, but what you gonna do? And certainly, one of the most terrible things to be seen in that series were the moments the Eagle Amazon read the future in the stars. And if you know Dick's version, it might be a surprise that goes against the original series. In fact, in those next chapter preview scenes, Seiya would ask if you had ever felt your cosmos.
君はコスモを感じたことがあるか?
Yeah, the cosmos is the world's mana. Everybody had it, and being able to use it made you special, instead of you having to be born special to be able to use it. Here, more than we know how it's going to end, and Pegasus is always born around Athena and protects her, in a world of items that can give the 8th sense to those holding them, even more than the horoscope said it'd go bad, and the god of the deep waters pretending to be the god of war, they are literally born special, with a slight implication of it being in the family on top of it, meaning they're mutants. And have to readjust their antenna because we've seen a teenage goddess gathering a way more diverse and interesting group. It's like if I wanted to create my own knight and Netflix said,
"You have no power. You never will have power. Now, go home."
But hey, it's an action series. There are worse things for an action series than having a poorly made tropey story copying better things they don't understand why are better. See if you can spot the bigger problem. It might be difficult to see it if you haven't seen the original, but here we have 3 small problems. Tiny really, I shouldn't even be complaining. But since it's my job, the first is something that's been happening a lot and happened in the Powerpuff Girls, for instance. There's a difference between animation to get an idea across, where you show everything necessary so the audience gets it, and animation that shows the effects alone. Remember the mask from... It makes logical sense that it's a little behind movement-wise, but no one sees this. It's like a character in a car feeling the sudden movement of starting to go throughout the whole trip. And this isn't a matter of being CG or not, it's planning. Just watch the slower version of Seiya getting his cloth on. Suddenly, that quick pass is much less fun just because it took a little longer. It'd probably be less costly if they were less detailed spheres of light that were less three-dimensional, but faster, or luminous light that fades away quickly, maybe with a sphere inside it. Imagine how much less costly it would have been with these options, but stupidly, they decided the drawing should be more 3D. I mean, nobody remembers Zangief the box? The second issue is that this is a knight in the new series. 2 knights in the new series can bring down a helicopter. An Amazon specialized in defense can resist a missile. Leaving aside the foolishness of a chain being a shield against shooting in general, because apparently these guys fought Andromeda straps against Siren were literal, this is what a knight can do in the original series. In fact, a pupil who's not even a knight yet. This is just one of the 2 who together brought that machine down. It is true that they remade the moments they recognize as needing more emphasis, like the waterfall being reversed, or Swan attacking front and center to the camera, but the emphasis that still existed in various moments in the original series simply doesn't exist here. Again, this is a series that took knights that can split the heavens and say, you know what'd be good? If everyone shot balls of light, only in various colors. In these first 6 episodes, which adapt the same arc as the first 15 of the original, I saw the same Street Fighter EX fireball repeating all over the place, at most in lines of light or multiple of them at once. This is the lightning bolt, that attack that fills the screen and gives the spectator the idea that the light floods the air around it with golden energy. This gigantic thing that even for a Gold Knight's attack seemed grand and imposing is this.
Lightning Proton! Proton Cannon!
Seriously, no one making the art for this thought about Street Fighters vs X-Men? Because they had solved the dilemma of making a fireball long. Want me to? I'll do it for you.
Cápsula do Poder!
The third is that they, much like Dick, simply don't understand what makes something tense. Remember that tiny little moment? The episode is practically all worked around this fight. Besides part focusing on the motivation, Seiya v Geki is a fight directed to show the strength of the characters. It starts with Geki being thrown immediately, and the computers, which never lie, show impressive numbers before the big blow. And even that one takes some time, and their strength keeps just climbing to get to the snap and then the revelation that Seiya is okay and will defeat him. Unless he was trying to make him fall asleep until green blood came out of him. And how does the modern series, made after various attempts to continue the story, handle this? In 32 seconds. Well, they redesigned his cloth, which was one of the less interesting ones. Still not perfect. He seems to have those shoulder things that party dresses have. Nothing against it there, but we are talking about armor. Even the more elaborate of them usually have protection that's more practical. And there's not even a reveal under there.
It's kind of embarrassing to tell your therapist that rose petals are one of your triggers, you know?
And I do like him demonstrating strength before the fight,
until Plaza was falling down.
but unfortunately, it's clear that it's just poor use of time.
Sir, now that Seiya is the chosen one from the start, the fight will be too quick. Make him look stronger somehow.
I know having less time, this kind of thing would have to happen, but not to this point. 15 episodes in 6 means 5 episodes in 2, but of course not every moment needs to be redone. These are choices that have to be made, but by simple math, you might expect an old episode would be a quarter of one of the new ones. About 5 minutes. You certainly don't need to use that content, but they chose to have Bear here. He could have not arrived, especially considering certain inclusions.
Cavaleiros não devem usar sua armadura e seu cosmo para vontades próprias.
And it's worth noticing. An attack. They still didn't understand why Dick's version didn't work. More than that, for this half-minute fight, you waste time establishing Bear, showing he is the strong guy who doesn't think about consequences. In a series that wastes time making a manhole-covered character and placing knights that split the heavens against army weapons. Hey, wouldn't it be great if the whole first episode of Evangelion were just the military fighting against an angel? Why do you think nobody remembers Ultra Q? Damn, the first episode starts presenting a cup. No, I don't care about explanations outside the series. If you're making something, it needs to make sense in itself. Knowing what I know about the series, this could have been a representation of Hades by the colors or Athena by the focus in the beginning, but considering the water, this could have been Poseidon or a different cloth for Aquarius, or they could be changing the series like Show did, and this ended up being Abzu of the Deep Waters from Sensei Omega. But no, you know what this is? It's Next Dimension. Next Dimension is a manga series by Masami Kurumada and considered the canon continuation of the original manga series. As far as I know, it's about the war against Hades in the 18th century, making Lost Canvas invalid, and expanding about what happened after the war with Hades in the original. But there's this tiny little problem. Not unlike Star Trek, which is a different timeline from the original Jornada nas Estrelas, and since translation in Brazil still only respects media recognition, this will become an issue, but that's a whole other thing. Knights also had their Kelvin timeline from the CG movie. And you know who's there? It's just that it obviously died there, since no one wants to see a version where a huge saga ends in 93 minutes. I'd say there's only one good thing there. So it looks like the other versions wanted to make some kind of Elseworlds from DC for the franchise. The issue is that, much like how producers stupidly forced Discovery to change into being a part of the Kelvin timeline, it seems Netflix is trying to force their own timeline into being the new 52, jamming together Next Dimension and the classic series, but making sure to use ideas that didn't work from Dick. And this is a huge waste of time. No one has talked about Hades yet. This could easily be introduced further ahead since it's just a loose image. And I'm not saying the franchise shouldn't have gone through an update. Of course not. There's plenty of things that could have been improved. For instance, an antiquated system of masks that existed because women are fragile. Yes, I know that's not the official explanation, but it's pretty obvious that that's the reason. This has no reason to exist. It's like saying they should have an echo if they spoke with a mask on.
Mudança de planos.
Let's just get started. After the cup filled with my tears, the narration continues while they show the sanctuary became a single mountain. And this is an ugly image in my opinion. Why would a huge number of temples and buildings make sure to be in a single place? Why wouldn't there be connections between the levels or better uses of space between each floor? Because they only thought about the 12 temples. I have no other evidence, and I can certainly be wrong, but here's what comes to me. In Knights 86, damn I hate having to put that number there, we simply had to define that the 12 temples existed on the way to the Grandmaster's room. In fact, when Marine talks about going to Start Hill, there's no way of knowing it is an actual part of the sanctuary. It's probably close, since they mentioned her going there as well as the Master when he needed to predict the future. I told ya. There's precedent to their fatalistic attitude, and as time went by, this has been expanded on a bit, be it with temples for other gods, or a village near the sanctuary, but they had to go through the 12 temples. When you think about it, why couldn't someone go through the sides and start from Sagittarius, for instance? Knights 86 recognizes that, and the path is something less material in its representation, besides Gold Knights mentioning it's their duties to protect the temples. As a spectator, this was never a problem to me, and as a critic, I could point to the lack of clear logic, but there are possible explanations. Knights that split the heavens, remember? If someone comes by the side, they still have to be capable of defeating whoever is on their way, and whoever is attacked first can always call the other trained warriors that will come in the speed of light. When you get to that level, geography is but a detail. The order is probably more ritualistic, in case someone wants to challenge the Gold Knights in the 12 hours of the fire clock, or merely a stylistic issue, really. But no. We live in the "that's not realistic" era. So, someone has the brilliant idea that if it's going up a mountain, it makes some sense that no one could easily go outside the path. Because rock climbing isn't a thing. One more time, if you can split a mountain with a flick, you have to depend on the audience's suspension of disbelief. And just look at it. A drab cluster of buildings with no color. Looks like a turd with toilet paper around it. Oh, and we have to show everybody around Athena because the series doesn't care about spoiling itself. I saw this being done without saying what was going to happen. You did it yourself later. And these 3 images, one after the other, I don't have any way of showing how bad this is except... And just another detail about the opening, if you're gonna say the cosmos is a part of you, you can't say that destiny is something no one can take away from you. We've all got it and you're destined to have it, are mutually exclusive concepts. Look, I'm not just trying to find things to complain about. I particularly like the image of the Grandmaster with the 12 Gold Knights. It doesn't reveal too much about them, suggests the association between them and the big obstacles on the way of the Knights, and it's an abstract imagery, unlike the imbecility of let's tie a mystical scenery around the mountain or the intellectual laziness of bullets stopping mid-air because I said this is a defense. I mean, really? You've shown the sparks already, why not